If you're planning to visit Paris soon, I asked Rosie from the YouTube channel Not Even French, who lives in Paris, to tell you what you must know before you go.
Salut! Hi to the Love in London family. My name is Rosie from the YouTube channel Not Even French, which is all about my life in Paris as an expat. I'm here to give you guys some tips around visiting Paris. I have been living here for 6 years now, so hopefully there's some things in there that you haven't heard before. Okay, so tip number one is maybe a bit controversial, but don't climb the Eiffel Tower. So many people have told me that it's more impressive looking up in it than it actually is climbing it. And of course, once you climb it, you don't have the view on the Eiffel Tower. So what I would do instead of that is climb to the roof of the Arc de Triomphe that has an amazing 360-degree view all across Paris. You could always go to the roof of Tour Montparnasse. It's a big black tower. There's a bar right at the top and you can take a drink and have a beautiful view on the Eiffel Tower. You can also go to the rooftop of Galerie Lafayette, the big luxury shopping center as well. And there are some bars and restaurants. A beautiful, quite chic restaurant would be Les Ombres. I'll link all of these down below, and also you have a cool sort of hipster bar where you can take a drink on the rooftop, which is called Le Perchoir, and all of these are really popular with locals. The second tip I would give you is just to learn a few French words so that you can unlock the wonderful kindness and politeness that is present all throughout Paris. It's just when you approach a French person and you say, "Hi, can you tell me where to go?" kind of thing. I mean, they get a bit taken aback, and sometimes some French people won't feel comfortable talking to you in English straight away. They much prefer it, and they'll be so much kinder if you make a little bit of effort and at least say bonjour. That is the golden word. And bonus points if you can kind of say bonjour, excusez-moi, so hi, excuse me. That's even more polite if you're kind of interrupting someone as they're walking. And parlez-vous anglais? Do you speak English? That's wonderful as well. And then you can obviously ask them whatever you had to ask them or speak to them in English. And of course at the end of that, don't forget to say merci, or even better, merci beaucoup. If you just keep these very few words in mind, your experience will be so much better in Paris. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, okay, what can I do in Paris that isn't, you know, the typical tourist landmark? So of course, if you're coming here for the first time, you're going to want to see the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and Notre Dame and all that good stuff. But if you're coming back for a second, third or fourth or more time, I've got a few tips for you. So at the moment in Paris, and it's running all year, and I'm sure it will be extended, is the Atelier des Lumières. And it means the workshop of light. And it's a digital art exhibition. It's a completely immersive experience. It's absolutely amazing, so that's something cool to do. There are beautiful parks in Paris that are often overlooked. So there's the Jardin du Luxembourg, the Jardin des Plantes. There's actually a little zoo in this park, which is really cool. There are little red pandas and lots of different animals. That's really cute. That's still in the city center. And you also have a park called Butte-Chaumont, and that's kind of you know, on a bit of a hill, and so there are beautiful views in this park as well. So something really great that you can do is take a picnic and just enjoy and relax in the parks as well. We don't often think of parks, I think, when we think about Paris. I would also suggest walking down the Canal Saint-Martin. This is just, you know, a nice canal coming down Paris in a more kind of hipster area, so lots of cute shops and brunch places and that kind of thing. In terms of a tour that would be a little bit more original, I would definitely recommend the tour company Women of Paris walking tours. And you can do food tasting and beautiful walking tours around Paris, but there's a focus on famous women of Paris and the history of strong female characters in Paris, and it's really fascinating and kind of for a good cause as well. You can take the bateau mouche. The bateau mouche are boats that go all the way down the Seine, the river in Paris, and you can actually buy daily passes, and they stop at all the major landmarks, and it's just a beautiful way to see the city, because you're kind of cruising along and you see the sights of Paris as you go, and every pit stop there's something different. There's the Musée d'Orsay, there's the Louvre, there's the Eiffel Tower. I would also recommend that you take a drink on the Seine at a place called Rosie Bonheur, really popular with the locals. This is the kind of place where you can just take a drink, sit back on the kind of lounge chairs that they have available, and people watch, which is also one of the greatest activities you can possibly do in Paris as well, just people watching. Now, in terms of pronunciation of some of the most famous landmarks, the river that goes through Paris is called La Seine, not the Seine, even though it maybe looks like it could be spelt that way, so it's La Seine. You also have, the big famous shopping boulevard, which, you have all the flagship stores like the original Louis Vuitton store and everything, the big luxury shopping boulevard. It's called the Champs-Élysées, not the Champs-Élysées, Champs-Élysées. And I would also say it's important to know how to say arrondissement. And you'll see I'm still saying it with an English accent. So it's arrondissement, absolutely fine, but that means suburb or district. So you'll often say, I'm staying in the 9th arrondissement. The Louvre is in the 1st arrondissement. And so that's how we'd kind of describe the city of Paris. There are 20 different arrondissements. And if you don't know which one you're in, look up and find a street sign. And on the street sign, there is always a little number just above the words of what the street's called. So you'll always know which arrondissement you are in. Now, something a little bit different that I always warn people about when they come to Paris, especially for the first time, is that the pedestrian crossings just don't really work here. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's cultural, but just be really careful at the pedestrian crossings because most of the motorists will not wait for you. And don't forget they drive on the right-hand side as well, as opposed to London, of course, where they'll be driving on the left. So just be extra careful around pedestrian crossings because you're like, oh, they're ages away, they'll stop for me. No. Now, a lot of people do ask me, do you need to tip in Paris? And the answer, to be blunt, is no, you don't need to. You won't come across as stingy or frugal if you don't tip. Now, in saying that, if you've had a lovely evening and of course the service has been great, feel free to tip. I mean, it'll be very much appreciated. And even if it's just €1 or €2 when you leave and put that on the table, I'm sure they'll be very, very appreciative. But no, you don't need to do so. I did also just want to mention 2 apps which have been really, really useful for anyone visiting Paris. So the first is City Mapper, and if you have used this in London, you'll know how great it is. It's a public transport map, but it links not just the metro and the buses, but it also links the bike sharing system, so you can see which stations have bikes available and all of that good stuff. So it's all in one place, so it makes getting around Paris so much easier. And there's also another app called Paris Offline Travel Guide and City Map. And again, I'll link all this stuff down below for you, but this actually allows you to identify which landmarks you're going to, plan your itinerary, and download it so you've got it all offline for your day of walking around and enjoying the city. Paris is known as a bit of a fashion capital, so a lot of people are quite concerned about what to wear when they come to Paris. And it's really just being smart casual, I guess. Smart casual, and you do think that coming to Paris you need to really dress up and wear makeup and wear heels and stuff like that as a woman. That's really not the case. Very few people wear heels, so flats and like pretty sandals or ballerinas or even a chunky block heel are like totally fine. Flat boots are very, very popular in the winter, for example, and then usually they're teamed with kind of like skinny jeans or ankle grazer jeans, and then yeah, a nice t-shirt and a blazer or a blouse and a leather jacket, that kind of thing. And for men, it's pretty simple really. A nice jumper, trousers, and closed toe shoes. Man sandals aren't really a thing here, but apart from that, it's kind of just think about being, a bit tidy and classic. And then if you want to have a bit of fun, you usually use accessories. So that's where a bright handbag or a nice scarf would come in handy. Otherwise, it's pretty simple in terms of fashion. I don't want to end on a downer, but I do want to make sure that you have a great time in Paris. It's just beware of pickpockets. So it's about being street savvy. If you're eating outside on the terrace, don't have your handbag behind you on the chair while you're in full discussion. It could be quite tempting maybe for a pickpocket. Likewise, if you're on the metro, instead of having your backpack behind you, I always like to take it off and put it down by my feet just so that I have a view on my backpack, for example. And if you see anyone playing kind of street games or selling trinkets and Eiffel Towers and this kind of thing, and even if people come up to you asking you to sign petitions, this kind of thing, there are some organized scams around Paris. And I'm not saying they're all scams, not all street games are scams, and not all petitions are scams, not at all. But if you don't speak French and you can't ask the right questions to kind of challenge them and see if they're legit or not, no. And you can even say, if you want to say no sorry, no, désolé, désolé is sorry, no désolé, say, you know, and make it clear that you're not interested. I mean, anything that seems a little bit off, just avoid it, because then you will have an amazing time in Paris and you won't go home with any bad stories. So those are just some of the tips that I had for you today. I hope that they're useful. I hope you guys have a great trip to Paris. À bientôt!
If you'd like to hear about how London and Paris are different, you should go watch the video over on Rosie's channel that we did, in which we're talking about the differences between the two cities. And you can watch that by clicking the box that's popping up right below me.